This is Abe Friedtanzer for Awards Buzz. Very excited to be speaking with Sharon Horgan about Bad Sisters. How are you, Sharon?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I was listening back to our conversation from about 2 years ago for season one. I had finished the show before it got renewed, and I was like, there's no way this will get renewed. It's so good, but like the story is over. And I was so happy to hear that it was coming back. And I'm curious because I think you said you had to find the right idea. Were there other ideas you came up with for what season two could look like that you were like, that's not going to work?
Actually, no. I mean, it was a bit of a process in that, the a sort of central idea came first, which was, I guess, the notion of um lightning striking twice, and how would a woman like Grace deal with it when she's been so used to covering up, because of her, her shame and the fact that she's been isolated herself for so long. Like, what would happen if, she was targeted again? Because that's how it happens. Women who've been in those situations don't just sort of waltz into a happy relationship. Not necessarily anyway. And what would happen if it happened again? And the people that she's closest to, her sisters, if she wasn't able to tell them because of this, um uh because of the fact that she's so used to keeping secrets. So that was the initial sort of idea. And then the sort of notion of him, a lot of the research I was doing was about con men characters and dirty John kind of relationships, and how on earth they sort of cover up for so long and how they get away with it. And then we also wanted to bring in this idea that the people you're supposed to trust the most, like the cops, are, can be the perpetrators and the villains. But what we needed and what we sort of worked on in the second writer's room was like what happens in the middle. Like, because the idea was to keep him, if he fooled Grace, he would fool the sisters. And, how do we sort of um after Grace's death, when the sisters are looking for answers, who are they sort of blaming? And that's when Angelica came into it, and the idea of her, you know, as a sort of decoy villain. And she was such a perfect decoy villain. Um, yeah. So it was like it was a bit of a process, and it took a little while to get there. But that was, I mean, it was exciting and scary, because you're kind of in the middle of the writing process. You're kind of a little bit on your own. Your writer's room sort of disbanded, and then you're sort of realizing that you've got some problems, or issues that you have to sort of get over.
I love that idea of a decoy villain because I think it
Yeah,
just you're not even paying attention, like you don't even realize there's something else because
yeah.
if you think about it, she's not nearly as bad as JP. Like it seems like she is for a while,
Not at
but
all. She's such a big character, and on the surface, she's a holy Joe, and she's a bigot. She's completely intolerant. She's, where's everything, all her good deeds are for the world to see, but then underneath it all, just like layers of you know hurt and not knowing where to place herself in the world, and sort of latching onto Grace, but then too much, and then just sort of lashing out. But for the sisters, she is kind of everything they hate, but they're also like in deep pain, like they lost their minds really, and they're looking for someone to blame, and she's right there. But she was, yeah, it was developing her journey for the series, and also that thing of like, because the first season is such a specific tone. We're dealing with these really difficult, brutal subjects, but it's also such a caper. Like you're running around chasing a man with no pants on, um, trying to kill him six different ways, so it was like finding a way to continue that tone, because we knew we wanted it to be the same but different. So finding ways to sort of deal with Angelica became the thing that provided the caper.
it's nice to see little traces of season one still in there. Like I did not expect Daryl McCormack to come back because I thought like, that's part of the past. And also these sisters are not great as the, investigators to discover, not great at sort of covering up for what they do. And so all these loose ends are definitely problematic.
But also like all of that is the ghost of JP. Like all of that is the influence of the prick's actions from season one. I mean the discovery of the body, that brings the whole thing, up and open. Like Grace is probably just sort of, waiting to be found out, really. And for those intervening years, she's had like a semblance of, normality and this love that comes into her life. But like everything that happens and that snowball effect that brings, it brings Matt back into it. Like he became part of something, he covered it up as well. And so, of course, when things start sort of, when police start snooping around, it was a perfect way to kind of bring him in and sort of, you know I don't know, like look at romance and what is a great love affair. Like it's, is it Joe or is it Matt? Like Matt's the sort of the excitement, but like Joe's just this wonderful, person who loves her more than she's kind of used to being loved, and I adore, it's actually very hard to to stay on track with the thriller of it, and the sort of detective sort of work, because all I want to write about is love and relationships and family, and so it's that's a bit of a challenge in itself.
I'll say that the villain switch was definitely the most surprising moment of the season for me, but I also think Grace dying so early was really jolting. Was there any apprehension about, you know, killing her off so early?
I mean, completely. I mean, actually, I don't think I answered your question completely truthfully. There was other ideas before we landed on that, that had all the sisters trying to sort of track down Ian, I suppose, when he skedaddles with the money. That was an original idea, and it just didn't feel right. Grace is a whole different kind of character from these sisters, and it didn't feel right making her part of that sort of caper. But then also, when I went back and watched the first season, and I mean, I loved everything about it, but it is a Hollywood ending. Everything's going to be okay, and generally everything is not okay. So it didn't fit. It felt like there was more to her story. Like I thought, Jesus, I really want to see what happens after. I really want to see how they get on with their lives, and how their lives have changed because of, the dark deed. And um with Grace, I mean, she's such a fragile thing. I mean, and she also killed the father of her child. So she's in this open wound, and like I said, so unable to sort of turn and look for help, and when she does, it's too late. When she's calling Eva, and like it's sort of when we talked about it, we all kind of got the shivers. So we thought, oh, as long as, I mean, it's a scary thing to do because you don't want to alienate an audience, but giving the sisters that journey to try and find out what happened, and uncovering all this stuff along the way, just felt way more true to the show, and to the, the the difficult sort of subject matter that we're dealing with. It felt more kind of true to that. So anyway, the other thing I would say is, one of the things we were worried about was that the grief of losing this, like, the person they love the most, how is it going to infect the show and its tone? And then the realization that grief just is a movable thing. And, you can be on the floor 1 minute, and the next minute you can be, on the floor with laughter, because none of it makes sense. And the only thing that sort of heals and helps you get through it is laughter and family. And so once we sort of realize that, we're like, well, they will always represent the grief, but it doesn't have to be a grief fest. From the moment she dies to the end, there's life continues, unfortunately and awfully, but also in a way that's really natural, and love is still there and laughter is still there. And so we just kind of had to wrap our heads around that, and then we were okay.
Is this the end of the story, or is there possibly more?
Well, we're kind of, I mean, I was absolutely convinced it was the end of the story. And when we were filming that final scene, it was like, oh, it's kind of hurt. It hurt because I felt like it was the end of the story. And, I feel like it's probably worth exploring the idea of, the thing is like you create characters like that, and it's very hard to say goodbye to them, but it's also you feel very protective of them and the legacy of the show. And so, I mean, if there is something there, great. And if there's not, also great, Um, we'll at some point in the future we'll have a little think and see if there's anything there. But I feel like it needs time. I feel like you need a bit of time because otherwise they're the unluckiest women in the world. You have to, believe the story that you create.
Well, it looks like in the meantime you have a few projects in development. Is there anything you can share that's okay to talk about?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's one that hasn't been officially announced, and I mean, it's kind of any day now, but unfortunately, I mean, maybe by the time this comes out, I don't know when it's coming out, but I'll give my PR
Let's
people
let's be
a heads
safe
up
and we'll save that for next time.
on
Yeah.
it. But we start filming Vladimir with Rachel Weisz for Netflix on the beginning of July, and we are in the writers' room for a second season of Amanda Land with Lucy Punch. You haven't guys haven't got that here yet, but it's like it's a spin-off of Motherland. It's so good. And then I'm working on a new show for HBO, which is I've just started the writers' room on that. And I'm loving it because it's kind of back to my roots of half hour and slightly more autobiographical than Bad Sisters kind of allowed me to be. But back to my sort of roots of catastrophe and divorce, and it's really nice going back there with HBO, which is kind of, I was just talking about this earlier, like when I first made Pulling, which was my very first anything, they HBO reached out to me to find out what they could do. And then we ended up developing Divorce, and they are, I mean, what a great place to be and what a great place to make TV. So yeah, so that, and I have other things that I can't tell you about, but maybe next time we talk.
It's okay. I'm a big fan of Divorce, so I'm happy to hear anything about that show. It was a lot of fun.
Great, thank you.
What do you like to watch? What have you seen recently on TV that's really impressed you?
It's really impressed me. Um, well, Hacks always impresses me just because it's so funny and it's such a great double act. Like I love really meaty, great double acts. Um, I mean, Adolescence, of course. Um, uh, what else? Um, oh, jeepers. Series wise, it always goes out of my head. I should like prep for these things. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head.
These are great choices. I hope that we'll have the chance to talk again soon. And while I'm sure there's plenty of good projects, I hope it's going to be about Bad Sisters season three. So something, however far it is from now, I'm looking forward to seeing it someday.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we'll
So thank
see.
you so much for your time, Sharon. Nice to see you again.
No problem. Nice to see you too. Take care.